And welcome everybody once again to a Safe Place podcast, and today I'm going to speak about a controversial topic, which is racism. 100% on one level racism exists, but there's a difference between racism and the world that we create within our minds with thoughts, feelings and perceptions. That the worlds that most of us create inside of our mind, the worlds that we believe to be reality, are an illusion. And actually this unconscious thing that takes place within our psyche, how we project a misunderstanding of reality back onto reality, creates a lot more suffering in the world that doesn't need to be there. I'm going to show you a 4-minute clip of a gentleman in America called Sean, who managed to transform a neighbourhood in a really beautiful, loving way on the back of the George Floyd death. But what I want to try and do is break down how Sean has created a false world inside of his mind, and that false world is what most of us create reality to be. So let me show you the clip.
A Tennessee man is building a brighter and more connected community one step at a time. Sean Dromgoole is a longtime resident of his Nashville neighborhood known as 12 South. After the death of George Floyd, he posted to social media saying he was afraid to walk alone because of the color of his skin. Our Jamie Wack shows us his neighborhood's moving response.
Sean Dromgoole is no stranger to the view outside his Nashville home. The 30-year-old has lived in the neighborhood his entire life, his family for generations.
Growing up, it was a mostly black community, everyone was family, and then it changed.
As the area grew in popularity, Sean watched as his neighborhood became gentrified. The black families he once played with moved out, and white families moved in. And a few years ago, a pivotal turning point. Sean says police stopped him without reason and followed him home to make sure he lived there.
No justice, no peace.
In a time when America is experiencing nationwide protests over racial inequality, he didn't feel safe to walk alone.
So Sean said here that the police stopped him under suspicion and followed him home to make sure he lived there. At the moment, let's be honest, it doesn't inclinate any form of racism. White people and black people all over the world get stopped by police. There are countless videos of police handling situations with their perceived reality incorrectly and holding normal people under suspicion of doing things that they hadn't done. At the moment, this doesn't show any evidence for racism.
What was it that made you feel fear in a neighborhood that your family had been a part of for 54 years?
People saying, it's a suspicious looking black man walking down the street. If you say suspicious looking black man, the police come ready and I'm dead.
So Sean there worries that he's heard that a suspicious looking black man is walking down the street. Okay. And he's jumped to the conclusion that that means he's dead. So he's created a world inside of his mind where he's going to be killed for being black. Now the reality is he wasn't killed for being black. He went home. Try and get this inside of your mind that Sean feels afraid, and Sean has created under that fear a belief that he will be killed for being black. Now we don't know that the police at the time never had a call come in that somebody committed an offence and Sean fitted that profile. But from Sean's perspective, he's been stopped because he's black. And as a result of that now, he lives in fear in his home, believing that he's going to be killed for it. And in reality, he's very perfectly well safe and alive at home. Try and see the separation here between what our thoughts create the world to be and what the world actually is.
Before I can even think, it's a very real fear as an African American male in 2020.
As George Floyd's story became embedded in the American conscience, Sean posted this. I wanted to walk around my neighborhood, but the fear of not returning home to my family alive kept me on my front porch.
So Sean got stopped once, and as a result of that, said that he no longer goes out and he stays on his front porch. Has the world done that to Sean? Or is Sean living in a false reality of fear And actually Sean's not going out into the world. It's not the world's doing that to him. It's more like Sean's projecting that out onto the world.
50 people would respond, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I'll walk with you." And there were 75 people in the parking lot. It's like, wow, I don't feel invisible. I feel like people care.
I will never know what it's like to be in the shoes of somebody who has a different color skin than me.
Carrie Conley was one of the neighbors at the walk.
I've lived here 15 years. He's literally like 3.5 blocks from me, and I've never seen him or his family.
So she's never seen him or his family. Is that because she's racist? Or is it because Sean's scared? Now, no one can deny that Sean's in a state of suffering if he's isolated himself inside of his house. But let's put it into perspective. He got stopped once. I've been stopped by the police. And it wasn't because I was white. I know loads of white people that have been stopped by the police and loads of black people. But for Sean to actually isolate himself inside of his home, why? Because he believed he would be killed. And let's look at the reality. He's alive. He's not been killed. He's not been racially abused. And this whole 4-minute clip is about racism. And it's actually got nothing to do with racism. It's got everything to do with projection, false realities, illusions and delusions.
If we don't stop to talk to our neighbors, we're missing out on so much.
We are only getting started.
Sean hopes he can bring the movement to many U.S. cities and walk in other gentrified neighborhoods.
This is what happens to black and brown families who remain in inner city or suburban neighborhoods. It's a bad feeling when you feel like you're a prisoner. I literally felt like I was a prisoner on my front porch.
You are sitting on the steps that you sat on and were afraid to move from. How does it feel now?
I'm now free to walk around the neighborhood.
So the beautiful thing here is that through believing that his neighbourhood was racist and he was black and people were suspicious of him because of the colour of his skin, what Sean's actually found out is his neighbourhood isn't racist. Don't you think that's incredible? He's found out that not only is his neighbourhood not racist, but they're actually very accompanying and want to have Sean as a part of their community. However, this clip is about Sean projecting his belief that people wanted to kill him because of the colour of his skin. And that's not the reality. The reality is people don't want to kill Sean. The reality is that his neighbourhood wasn't racist. It was all a misunderstanding inside Sean's mind. He created an alternate reality out of fear. He isolated himself. His community didn't isolate him. Sean's fear isolated him. And when we look at mental health, we've got to be really conscious now of how we create realities that aren't reality.
The whole world is behind me. I am getting to see America live up to its creed of being a more perfect union. I'm a part of a story that begins on the slave ships, and now I get to see this little part of the world and become a better place.
Sean said here, this is what happens to black people when they remain in these types of neighbourhoods. What? All he's done is shown that staying in a neighbourhood now, which is for Sean predominantly white, has turned out to be a beautiful experience, yet he's still projecting his irrational fear on reality. We have to be able to understand that this is what's going on here. We have to separate what is racism from what isn't. And this whole 4-minute clip has got nothing to do with racism. It's got everything to do with a distorted projection onto reality that we've manifested with our own mind, our own fears, our own beliefs. Sean's neighbourhood is a safe, loving neighbourhood. The only thing that shows here is Sean's misinterpretation of that. Sean projected racism onto his neighbourhood, and his neighbourhood projected no racism onto Sean, yet Sean is still projecting racism onto it, and it doesn't exist there. We can see that from the clip. The sad thing is, it's took this delusion of what's going on in reality from Sean to actually get a community to come together and show love and connection and beauty with each other. The beautiful thing is, incredibly, that the outcome of it is what we all hope for, which is connection with one another. It's just, for me, it's been done under the illusion that it was toxic or bad beforehand, and it wasn't. What was toxic here was Sean's mind, was Sean's perceptions and beliefs. And that isn't me being racist. It may sound like it, I'm aware how much it must sound like it, but it's not. It's me trying to really put a line between what's racism and what's unreal. And Sean's beliefs here proved to be unreal because he's now in a beautiful relationship with his neighbourhood. So ask yourself the question, based on things you've heard from mum and dad, beliefs and misunderstandings of reality that mum and dad have about racism, that now become your beliefs, question how real they are. Go out and venture and test it. If you're a black guy, go and speak to a white guy and see what type of attitude you get from him. There will be a percentage of people that do have racist tendencies that will prove that people can be racist. But there'll also be people that you interact with that prove that they've moved beyond racism and they see it all as the same. Understand and try and learn and separate reality from delusion. And hopefully there'll be less Seans that are locked away in their homes, afraid to go out into a neighbourhood. Anyway, a short clip that's there not to offend anybody, but to try and help us become more conscious and move beyond our irrationalities. Thank you.